Good night. It's the night of the 19th of November 2025. This morning we had the first frost. We had the first morning where the frost was stuck to the windscreen. You know, a white frost on the windscreen of this vehicle and of cars generally. And it's no harm to know that when you come out and there's ice on the windscreen, always pull out your wipers. Don't turn them on because it puts a lot of strain. Pull out the wipers and get them free, or free them up with warm water or something like that, or a de-icer. Anyway, I forgot to do it this morning, and of course you could hear them pulling, but I won't forget anymore. So that's the first frost. It's also the time of year, tomorrow's the 20th of November, when I always realise that keeping cattle out any longer is borrowed time. Mine's happy enough out, and they have a wee bit of forage, and then I'm giving them silage, and they're not eating all I'm giving them, so I'll leave them another little while and get the housing ready. But it's coming near that time of year. The nights are very, very long now in Ireland, very, very long. And I was in Iceland a few years ago, and they're even longer over there. It doesn't get bright till 10 o'clock in the morning. And about this time of year in 2009, I went to Oman. I went out to Oman for 10 days in the Persian Gulf, where the turtles are on the beach and all that. It's a Muslim country. There's a sultan in charge of it. But I always remember, it was just very, very hot, all sand, nearly no green grass at all. The grass plant really doesn't hardly grow, except where there are rivers or something like that. And there's actually rivers called wadis come out of the mountain. I never actually got to the very source, but they just come out of the mountain. I don't know where they come from, but anyway, and there's all kinds of frogs around where they are, and villages around where they are. And so then it's always lovely where it flows into the sea. It's a kind of an oasis with big palm trees and all. But I came back into Dublin Airport about 4 o'clock in the evening, and the weather was exactly like it is here today. That's 10 years ago, and the weather was identical, no matter what they say about climate change. It was some change. I had to wait on somebody to collect me, and I tell you, it was some experience to, even after 10 days in Oman, to stand out in Dublin in November. It was some cold, and it's cold out there tonight. I'll just see now what the temperature is here on the car. It's 0.5 degrees centigrade. And it was like that, but it was tough. I don't know how people want to come here in the cold. And I often wonder why it is that even thousands of years ago, people came north, and came very far north, and came as north as the Arctic. And you had Eskimos and Inuits. And the only reason I can think of that anyone would leave the warm Mediterranean and Africa is persecution. There must have been terrible violence among people. And we know a little bit about it from Otzi the Iceman, who was found in the Italian Alps. He's 5,300 years old, and he was killed with an arrow into the back. He was killed violently. We also know from the Native Americans, when the white man only came there about 250 years ago, and they had unbelievable, cruel stuff going on among themselves whereas now the United States, stealing each other's children and butchering each other. There was a lot of that went on. But anyway, that's another thing. So now the news from Ukraine is, I can't give it to you and guarantee it's right, but the Russians are giving it such a pounding. There is a bit of a response. Ukraine attacked a petrol plant or a refinery plant in Russia with attacking missiles. They're supplied, as far as I know, by United States. Attacking. They're not a very long-range missile. So clearly, if they had to get Tomahawks, they'd be attacking Moscow. You'd have a serious escalation. But Trump wouldn't give them Tomahawks. Anyway, the news is, one of the things I can't understand is how there is an inquiry into the corruption and the siphoning off of the money that's given out from Europe. Now, there was none of it up to now, Europe and the United States, but there is a tightening up of money. There's a 60 billion hole in Ukraine's budget. and Viktor Orban is blocking the giving of money to Ukraine, and he's getting a bit of support from a few others as well. So the money is drying up, and it's also President Trump has said he'd give no money. He'll only sell weapons. Excuse me, I ate a nut. It's got stuck in here. He'll sell weapons. So there's a tightening for money, and with that, there's probably a bit of a look round to see where all the billions went that they got. So there's a fella called Mindrich. He's Timur Mindrich. He might be Jewish, I'm not sure, because there's a good few of them Jewish. Zelensky is partly Jewish, but don't hold me on that now. I'm only trying to make chat out of it. But anyway, he is a big businessman in Ukraine, and he's fled amid this investigation, and he's gone to Israel. And Israel always takes in their own, always does. It looks after its own Jewish people. So it's fairly sure to say he has fled, got out of there. So it's amazing what a bit of an investigation can do. Now there's another guy. He's Umerof, Umerof. And he was the former defense minister. He is the former defense minister, and he's involved in the strategic military part of the Ukraine. And he's quite a big cog in the government in Ukraine. And the word is that he's definitely gone out of Ukraine. But the word is that he went to Turkey, supposedly to meet the Americans. I don't think they met him. Then there was reports he went to Dubai. And there's huge banking in Dubai, banking all over the place. And the latest report out of Russian intelligence is that he's gone to the United States. And he's over in America singing like a thrush on what's going on in Ukraine. Now, this is all in the news, very much in the... I can put my hand to it that it's in the news, but I can't guarantee it's true. Maybe he's going to come back again. I don't think anyone denies he left Ukraine, but there is denials that whether he's coming back or not. But if he isn't coming back, there would be suspicions as this investigation takes place. And like I said, I find it hard to understand this investigation. You'd think in a war-torn country you wouldn't have an investigation, but it appears there is one there. I thought Zelensky was a complete dictator, but it's a big country, 11 times the size of Ireland. Now, Steve Witkoff, Trump's man, I don't think that Kellogg fella, Keith Kellogg, is much involved in Ukraine now, or he gets much of a role, but this Witkoff fella does get a role. And he was planning to meet some Ukraine officials in Turkey. Now, Turkey's a NATO country. It's a NATO country, and it would consider it be a safe place for the Americans to come. But the implication is that they don't consider Kiev to be safe for high-ranking American officials to go anymore. Again, it's just an observation. Now, there is talk of a resurrection of the peace talks based on the Ankara in Alaska meeting with Trump and Putin a while back there. And sticking point appears to be that the Russians want a complete review of the security architecture of Europe. In other words, they'd look at NATO in places like Estonia, the Baltic states, Lithuania, and the role of NATO, and an idea of giving Russia a more secure future. It's said that the Americans will not tolerate any of that. They won't go for it under any circumstances. I'm only saying it, that's what is one of the things about that Russia wants. The other thing the Russian wants is they want complete denazification of Ukraine. How you do that, I'm just at a loss. But they want the territories to have taken, and they have them got. And they're winning at an awful rate. And it looks to me like the whole Ukrainian defense forces are in a state of semi-collapse at this stage. I don't know how they're getting on there. There's still local government in Ukraine, in the rest of Ukraine, in the west of Ukraine, and Odessa is still held by Ukraine, but maybe not for much longer. So Russia's hand is very, very strong. Russia's military hand is very strong. Europe has nothing. They're only trying to gather up an army now. Too late. Far too late. And America is kind of not that interested. But Trump did talk to Putin when he was over about other matters. That is US-Russian relationships, especially about the resources of the Arctic and all of that. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, those are the main things, and I'll keep you up to date on that. Now, just elsewhere, I noticed that in the Farmers' Journal tonight, and you will remember I did say that I think the current bankruptcy of the European Union alone is bad, but the bankruptcy, when you consider the Ukraine situation, is awful. And the holders of Russian assets in Belgium, the banks, they claim they'll go to court rather than hand it up. The EU is given a guarantee that if they do hand it up, they'll cover them. Now, I cover them if there's any claims in future. Now, just think of this. The EU is saying we want that money that belongs to Russia. It's 150 billion. It'll keep Ukraine going for a year or more, maybe a year and a half. We want that money. We can't pay Ukraine ourselves, we have no money. But if you give them that money and there's ever a claim, we'll cover you. So what are they going to cover them with? If they can't pay the Ukrainians directly, how are they going to give them money and then make it up if it's claimed later? So it's very much up in the air, but I think that the legal position will prevent the EU from getting that money. But you wouldn't know. They might find a way to forcibly take it. You wouldn't know. So we'll see on that. The other thing is there's another method being suggested that member states chip in, and that'll mean Ireland will have to chip in. And there's a few other ideas, but Ursula von der Leyen the EU Commission has given the member states till the next meeting. I don't know when that is. It's before Christmas. It's in December, to come up with a plan to finance Ukraine. Now just think of that. Member states are expected to finance Ukraine one way or the other, and they have a deadline. Now, how did we in Ireland get into a situation that we would have to bankroll a war? But that's the way we are. I'll keep you in touch with that as well. Now, I said already, maybe I'm repeating myself a bit, about the situation with agriculture and the common agricultural policy. The situation is that in recent years in Ireland and other countries, there's entitlements. Land comes with entitlements. In other words, it's a support to agriculture, and there are strict conditions attached to it. I draw some of them myself, and it's a big help. I know that prices are good at the moment, but if you sell an animal and you get 3,500, and you go out to buy a replacement, you could be paying 2,800 easily. So you have only 700 to keep in that animal for a year. Like, it's not much. But anyway, with the higher incomes for beef, not for dairy, they're down a bit, but not for grain either. But with the higher earnings from the meat trade, which I attribute to the Ukraine, they have to be feeding those soldiers with something. Where are they getting the food? I'd say it's been processed in Britain on behalf of the EU, and it's been sent to Ukraine. I think that's why the high cattle prices are there, although there are other issues, particularly in the difficulty in rearing stock and rearing calves. It's a tough job. I'm doing it myself in a small way. But the thing about it is, anyway, reason I want to say to you, it seems logical to me that farm subsidies will have to be hit hard. If they have no money, how are they going to pay it? Even though most of the subsidies goes back into the economies who collect VAT. So if the farmer gets 1,000 and he buys something for 1,000, there's VAT to be paid as well, which is 23%, which the government gets. So it all kind of is relative. But I see in the Farmers' Journal that they are considering of scrapping these entitlements altogether. That's now my prediction already said. I've said that long ago. I can't see how you can cut and cripple the economy of Europe and still continue to pay out on different schemes for farmers. And the schemes were good because they gave you a choice of things. I was in the one for the breeding scheme. You had to produce a certain quality of cattle, and you had to comply with a lot of husbandry and things and all that. And it was good fun. It was good doing it. You got an index and to compare you to the national average. One particular year I did extremely good. I was very, very proud of myself, but then I fell back a little bit. There are some things that are there, how quick you get your cattle back in calf, how many calves you have from a cow, And so if you're away and the heifer is in season and you're not there, sure, you're going to miss her. So it doesn't be always that efficient. But one particular year, it was extremely efficient for me. But the point is, it's a little help that way. It could be in danger. And this is the thing, if that goes together with an economic recession, you'd have an awful lot of farmers in trouble. In trouble. You would have a lot of farmers in trouble. I think anyway, that's my view of it. Well, some of them would be in a small way, but those who are in a bigger way may be in trouble. And it's a big risk now of people buying store bullocks, we'll say, or store cattle, paying 3,000 to fatten them on, and big risk that they'll come back, come back in price. Anyway, that's it. That's the basic what I have to give you to you tonight on 16 minutes, not too long. It's a bit of a chat. You can post it. Some people have posted on it. You're waffling on, you're talking through your hat. There's no anyone can give details of what happens afterwards. It's given it before is the thing. Now, also, I see there too that there's reports of German military training in the streets of the cities, that they're out practicing being snipers and mixing among people and how to deal with urban warfare. It is crazy stuff. We are in the most crazy world. I am trying to think, no matter who it is, even my old friend Donald Trump, the best way to look at the whole government is that they're all crazy. The big thing is that we get by without a war. If we can get by without a war, because I've no doubt a lot of wars long ago were all because of crazy people in power, mad crazy people. So that's the story, folks. Anything you want me to deal with, you can mention underneath, and I'll retire now for the evening and see us get a drop of tea and see you back soon. I think that's all we have. Economic situation in the world is not good. It is not good. And I saw there's huge homelessness in Germany. And there's huge homelessness throughout the EU. And when it comes to November each year, the homelessness becomes more pointed because it's cold. People lying out in doorways a night like tonight, like it is cruelty. It is cruelty. But anyway, it is happening. In some cases, they're very severe alcoholics, but not all. And they give the reasons in Germany as divorce is one, marriage breakup, and disputes with neighbours and things. People are forced to sleep on the street and cohabit and mix, go into community centres and all that. But in the midst of this, Europe is handing over billions for climate. Billions. And in the place where the Belém, where the COP30 conference is, they say that 40,000 Brazilians took to the streets demanding an end to fossil fuel. Now, as I understand Brazil, it's a warm, hot place. You could go out and lie in the back of the ditch. You remember all the John Wayne films that bed down for the night, the Western films, that bed down in Arizona and lie under the sun. You wouldn't do that in Ireland, even in the summertime, or very rarely anyway. So they have a hot climate. They're mad about this climate change, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. But how can they square a night like tonight here in Ireland without fuel? How can they square that? The consumption of fuel is going mad, going up. And there's this complete disconnect between some of the world and the rest of the world. I think they actually think it's possible to live without diesel, petrol, gas. It is not possible. You'd have deaths on an unbelievable scale. And you hear talk about so many million people have died from climate change. That is utter baloney. And also I hear that there's huge anxiety among young people. People now of 17 years of age have this drilled into them that the climate is in a disastrous situation, which is a total lie. And they need tablets and drugs to deal with it. Whereas youngsters should be going out to fish. When I was their age out to hunt and things, I don't care who likes it or don't, kept you out of the drugs anyway. But so this is, you have climate anxiety, where these idiots like Mary Robinson roar and roar about climate, and drive the children believe them. And by time the children realise it's a hoax when they're 28 or 9, the harm will be done. All the big companies are going back to fossil fuel. There is no alternative to fossil fuel for now, and a bit of nuclear. Anyway, folks, that's 20 minutes. We'll see you back. Be some crack if the farm subsidies are cut. It'll have a serious impact on rural Ireland. Anyway, that'll do. I'll talk to you again. Good luck. Bye.